Boom! Hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast, Season 4.
With your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out.
Boom! What's going on, you guys? Byron Rodgers here with another awesome episode of the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. You know, I've been blessed to have some amazing guests. I'm really excited about this one. Duke Speed, who's the Senior Training Manager for AUS now. And we're going to dig into everything having to do with the company. He's also a legend. You know, me being a Marine, I've heard his name for years in the recon community and all around the executive protection industry. So, you know, sit back, relax, and we're going to learn everything we can from this man who's made some awesome contributions already on multiple levels. So we're honored to have you, sir. How you doing today?
Doing great, Byron. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, welcome. Just real quick, you know, what are you, a little bit of your background and what are you doing now for AUS and things like that so people know who they're listening to?
Okay. So if you want, I'll kind of give you my history. You know, it's the problem with that is I'm going to show you how old I actually am. But
yeah, no, we got time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So back in 79, believe it or not, you know, I'm really dating myself. Came right out of high school, joined the Marine Corps. I was looking for really a physical challenge, honestly. I had played football, wrestled, and ran track all through high school, lettered in, you know, varsity sports in all three disciplines. And I really, my parents didn't have really the means to send me to college. And I was very naive regarding college, you know, tuition, loans, all that type of thing. I didn't even know about any of the service academies, to be honest with you, Annapolis and West Point, and those types of things. So I really was quite naive coming out of high school, but I knew I wanted to, you know, to have a physical challenge. So I talked to the Marine Corps recruiter and he hooked me, you know, like they usually do. Yep. He told me what I wanted to hear, which later on when I got to boot camp wasn't exactly what he said.
Yeah.
But you know the deal, being a Marine. He hooked me. I went to Paris Island, and believe it or not, a lot of guys don't know this. A lot of folks don't know this about my background, but I actually started out in the aviation field.
Really?
I was an ejection seat mechanic on F4s, Phantom jets, and A4 Skyhawks. And honestly, again, you know, kind of showing how naive I was. I went into the Marine Corps very naively, like I mentioned, and my recruiter kind of convinced me based on my ASVAB scores that I should go to more of a technical field. Yep. When really I thought I was going to be running around with Chemi and a pack on my back, and that was the thing from the truth. So anyway, once I got into the aviation field, I knew it wasn't for me. I wanted to get out of it as quickly as possible. So awesome. It took a while. I did kind of the unthinkable back then. I did a lateral move to the infantry.
Outstanding. I love it. Right. Swimming against the grain. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, that was unheard of. In fact, most everybody that even helped me through it said I was nuts. You know, they said, if you want to sleep in a mud hole and, you know, basically have a poncho liner for protection, that's going to be your life for the next 4 years. And I said, yeah, that's for me. So I did that wanting to go into the reconnaissance community. I had met a guy that was a recon Marine. Yeah, kind of just looked up to him. And so I figured I gotta get in the infantry first, and to go the recon route. And eventually, you know, that came to fruition.
Wow.
So to get back to your original question, you know, I I can kind of cover really about a span of 30 years if you want, but basically where I am today is I'm the senior training manager, as you mentioned, for Allied Universal Executive Protection Intelligence Services, and pretty much really anything training centric to the company. I'm involved. I do the design, the development, some of the instruction, actually a lot of the instruction, and then I'm with a great team of colleagues who, essentially do the same thing and support our training.
Yeah. And I mean, the experience you guys have over there and the talent that you guys have been able to retain and implement, even with the change, has been pretty awesome. It was really cool to link up with everyone at this last Close Protection conference and see all you guys,
Yeah.
So I'm excited. It seems like you guys still have an all-star squad over there for sure.
We do. I'm pretty proud of our ops and training. Maybe we'll probably get into this a little bit more into the conversation, but our ops and our training, we're joined at the hips, and basically our leadership philosophy coming right from the top is that training should be embedded with our embedded accounts because obviously everything training wise supports our embedded clients. So all the agents that are part of our accounts, we have to support them with their annual training requirements, some one-offs, if it's a specialty skill that we want to develop, such as waterborne security, those types of things. Training supports all of our accounts. What a lot of people probably don't also realize, and I've really kind of been trying to get this word out, is just about every program we deliver for our embedded accounts, our agents, we also offer those programs up for open enrollment. So unless it's a custom specific program for a particular client and they don't want any type of open enrollment, it's unique to them. Right. Any program we do is open enrollment. So, we want other folks to come in and attend our training programs because honestly, it also selfishly a little bit, we recruit that as well, like a lot of the other folks do. Right. So if we see a guy or a gal shine in training, obviously that's a good candidate to become one of our agents. So, it's a win-win all the way around.
Heck yeah. Outstanding. Yeah. And that's something I don't know if many people know, because I know there were some, the way that some of the training was run, it was kind of closed internal within the company from what I understand. But really what you guys are is another really big high-end training organization, training option for the agent now to really take a look at with really all-star cast of instructors, especially with yourself leading the charge there. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a good crew. Got a good crew for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love what you said about finding your way into the Marine Corps. It's a different breed, man. Some of us have that warrior DNA and just nothing will suffice. I did the same thing. I was in my cafeteria and I was like, I'm going to war. I wanted to do something that I knew would settle the masculine dilemma, because my father's really hardcore, a successful businessman, lifelong martial artist, hard man, got shot at point blank range with a shotgun when I was a kid, survived. Survived, still locks me on to this day. And I was like, how am I ever going to come close to like really measuring up? And I was like, I'm going to the military. And then I went up to the Army recruiter and in the cafeteria and I was like, so what's the real truth? I was like, Marine Corps or Army? And he was like, well, what are you looking for? And I was like, I want it to be hard. I was like, I want it to suck. I want people to look at me and I want them to know that I did the hardest enlisted branch. I want to suck every single day. And he looked at me and he looks around and he leans over and he goes, you should probably just join the Marine Corps.
Good advice. Yeah. And I'm sure it came true because, I don't think anybody's going to argue with our boot camp. It's pretty much physically, it's pretty challenging and emotionally. Yeah.
And I think some of the biggest benefits really are the psychological and emotional benefits of understanding that you don't know your limitations, that you really can push through so many barriers you thought you had as a civilian, it's discipline. That stuff, taking that stuff through life, I think has really benefited me more than a lot of things. Yeah, that's awesome. So another one of my favorite opening questions is, so who are you at your core? Like, who's been driving you through, 20 years active duty in the Marine Corps and all the different things you've done with different agencies and, and then into this position?
That's a really good question. It's going to sound like a really simple answer, but I'm just a normal guy who really is just trying to better myself every day. And I know that sounds really cliche, but what I mean by that is, I've learned a lot of hard lessons like we all have. Life's tough. And most of the time when you learn something, it's usually from bad experiences, right? So,
right.
I've had a great 30-year career with the Feds, 20 years in the Marines, went up through the ranks, eventually achieved my goal of, getting to the reconnaissance community, force recon, Special Operations Training Group. Spent the last half of my career with the reconnaissance community, working with some, wonderful people, and then all branches of the SOF community as well. Worked alongside SEALs, SF, Air Force PJs, combat controllers. So I really am blessed to have worked with some really great role models and mentors. Probably the biggest thing I've learned is just to be humble. And, it's easy for me to say that, but I'll tell you, there was probably a time in my career where, to be honest with you, I was a little bit arrogant and, young, stupid, immature, and, really probably came out of the Marine Corps a little bit cocky and foolish, to be honest. And
good to know.
Yeah. Honestly, I've probably learned more in the last 22 years since I've been retired from the Marines. I've been retired now longer than I served. Of course, I did go on to another 10 years with the Feds, and we can talk about that later. But, my point is I've now been retired 22 years from the Marines, and I only served 20. I've probably learned more these last 22 years just about life in general and how to treat people and how to carry myself more so than I did in the Marine Corps. I mean, the Marine Corps was great. It's a great foundation. Yeah. But probably the biggest thing I've learned through many hard lessons is just to be humble, be a servant leader. That's probably, I guess, who I would like to model myself. If I were to label myself, it would be to try to be a servant leader. And what I mean by that is just to be a good person for everybody around me. Try to mentor and be a good role model by setting the example. Do I miss the mark occasionally? Of course I do. I'm human like everybody else. But I think if one strives for that, we're pretty much going to be hitting the mark for the most part every day.
That's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, from the beginning, just be humble, try to better yourself every single day. These are the things that fuel a successful career. And I couldn't agree more, and I think especially with our industry and agents coming from where we come from, these awesome backgrounds and, retired from a career in law enforcement or the military, there's definitely a battle with ego coming into a new industry or getting on a detail and all of a sudden you're on the private jet and, maybe the client likes you a little bit. So you're the new shot, you're the flavor of the month, and then they invite you to sit up front with them one time, and there's definitely a battle with, men have to stay grounded and women have to stay grounded and manage those egos, man. That's powerful stuff. What would you say? Why do you think you've learned more during this latest phase of your life? What would you say is the reason for that? Got better at learning or better at I mean,
that's a great question. I think honestly, it's just life experience. I retired out of the Marine Corps. Literally, as I mentioned, I came right out of high school. So I went literally from high school, graduated in June of 79. 2 weeks later, I was in Paris Island, hating life, thinking, what the hell have I done? Yeah. So, I retired 20 years to the day later. So June of 99, I retired. And I was still young, 38 years old when I retired. So really, many of us, we're still kind of immature at those.
We're still hammering. Yeah. We still trust ourselves a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, 38 is still pretty young. And you also really kind of you get a wide perspective, but you also have somewhat of fairly narrow scope in the Marines, right? You view everything from the perspective of being a Marine, right? And I still do to a large extent, but when I got on into other industries, I went from the Marine Corps, I worked for the Navy, I worked for the State Department, I worked for the Air Marshal Service.
Yeah.
I worked for the private sector. I worked for the FAA rather. So I got a lot of different perspectives from other folks with different backgrounds. So it's kind of shaped me in a lot of ways in how I view things now. And again, as I've gotten older, as I mentioned, I am kind of getting up there. I'm 60 years old now, right? So I've had 22 additional years to kind of view life in general. And I've just learned that, what the things that used to spin me up back when I was 38, get me all either PO'd or excited. Nowadays, I'm a little more mellow, and I kind of take a step back and view things a lot differently. And again, it kind of goes, I know it's cliche, but it kind of goes back to having empathy, right? Try to put yourself in the person to your left and the right shoes, right? And that goes for operationally, training, just life in general. Treat people with respect, have empathy, try to see their point of view, and be humble. And that's kind of how, honestly, that's kind of how I try to promote our training programs as well.
Yeah.
And everything we do in the company.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I think the servant leadership thing that you mentioned is like such a ridiculously powerful and important key. I really hope guys that are listening to, especially if you're moving from like being an agent to trying to get your own PPO or trying to run a team, and you probably didn't get much training, like leadership training, that servant being the first guy there, the last guy, making sure that you're trying to take care of your team and not just get a promotion and protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's, it's easier said than done, but, set that example. And again, I've already mentioned this, but have empathy and put yourself in their shoes. Don't ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself or you haven't already done already, right? That's basic leadership 101. You know that from your Marine Corps days. You're not going to ask one of your troops to do something that you're not willing to do yourself, right? That's just poor leadership. Or that you haven't already done, right? So you know what it's all about, and you know what it's going to be like when they're in those shoes.
Yeah.
But that totally translates to executive protection, right? It's all about the client. And, in Allied, we say, we want to, basically our mantra is keeping our clients safe, happy, and productive, and that sounds a little bit silly. Of course, safe is obviously the security part of it, but happy and productive basically means we want to make their life easy for them. We want to be problem solvers. So, everything in our training, the hard skills is all great. And, we all love that, and it's sexy and it's fun, but the human emotional intelligence skills, those are huge. How do you make your client or your principal's life easier? And that's kind of really what we emphasize in our training programs.
That's awesome. No, that stuff's huge, because I think that's the stuff that really makes a successful agent. Your sub-second draw and your Judy chop and your karate chop or whatever you bring to the table. That's not like, I always say hard skills may save lives, but soft skills will keep you in the game and get you paid. That's awesome to hear that you guys are talking about that stuff in training.
Right.
Another question too. So 40 years experience making critical decisions in high stress situations was one of the things I was reading about you. What would you say about critical decision making under stress? Because we're doing it on like a micro level on almost daily when we're dealing with these powerful people, their assets and things like that. And then sometimes we have to do it on a large scale. Any advice on that stuff? Yeah,
I would say it's going to sound fairly simplistic probably, but I guess the first thing is consider the big picture. What is the mission? And it goes back to what I just said about our mantra at Allied EP&I is, keeping our clients safe, happy, and productive. So when you're in a stressful situation, let's face it, EP is very stressful. Whether you're a driver, you're an agent, you're a sole practitioner, or you're on a multi-agent team, it's stressful because it's a very dynamic environment, and again, of course, I know I'm preaching to the choir here because you're in it as well, but, it's constantly changing. Travel, airline reservations get moved at last minute. Phones go down, navigation.
Your plans get washed away in an instant.
Right? And your driver gets lost. or his navigation goes down, and now you're on the fly trying to get him back on track without making it look, like a big buffoonery type situation, right? So it's very stressful. So I guess my advice would be, first of all, if you're the person in charge, or even just the agent on the detail, it might be the lowest guy or the lowest gal on the detail in terms of rank and in position. Take a step back, just take a breath, and evaluate the big picture. What are we trying to accomplish here? Instead of just letting your emotions, run rampant, and you end up, usually under stress, you end up making poor decisions anyway. So take a breath, take that tactical pause, for lack of a better term. Take a breath, evaluate, and try to be calm. That old saying, be a duck. Calm on the surface. Underneath, those feet are going like crazy, right? Yeah. So again, it's easier said than done, but that would be the big thing. And the other thing is try to be calm, right? Because that's one of those things that's contagious. If you're calm under pressure, from being in combat, if you can be calm, cool, and collected, the folks around you, your subordinates, even your leadership, they're going to kind of gravitate to that, whatever you're conveying. At the same time, if you're all stressed and you're yelling and screaming and you're all kind of out of control, unfortunately, that's going to follow suit as well. So that would be, my biggest thing is take a step back, take a tactical pause, take a breath, evaluate the big picture, and try to remain calm and come up with a solution, solve the problem.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it really does kind of tie in with what you were saying, even about, as you've gotten older, being able to learn more because you have more perspective, and the things that would spin you up don't as much now. It's like a more sober-minded approach really to life and to decision-making. And really, I couldn't agree more. And I've seen it in action as well. Being able to stay grounded in the middle of chaos, because that's what we do. We try to bring order to chaos, chaos of their lives, to chaos of what they want. We're always trying to bring some order and into these environments. And even in a combat situation, you're trying to bring order and strategy to chaos, So I think you nailed it. Really, as a protector, we've got to be grounded and sober-minded to make the best decisions possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because your principal, right? That person you're protecting, and helping, trying to make their life easy, right? For them, their time is valuable. They're obviously, the resources are valuable. You want to make things as seamless as possible for them. So if you're conveying calm and cool and collected, they're gonna feel much more that you're in control. Whereas if you're all amped up and stressed out, it's going to just convey to them as well, and they're going to start second guessing the whole environment and the whole situation. Yeah,
100%, and they're going to start second guessing you.
Yeah,
exactly. In those high stress situations, it's really hard to outlive looking bad in those high stress situations.
Yeah, sometimes it's that one time, that unforgivable, it could be the difference between being employed on that contract or not, right?
Absolutely, 100%. When you're looking at agents coming into this game, I think this is really valuable with all your experience. What types of attributes are you looking for? So you got someone running through training, the things that you believe cause you to trust them and know that they'll go far possibly in the industry.
Well, one is, again, I'm looking for humility right up front. In other words, I want somebody that's, basically willing to be a sponge. And, there's a reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Listen, 100%. Eyes open, and be a sponge and absorb training. That's not to suggest that we don't want anybody asking questions, things like that. That's obviously, that's absolutely what we don't want. We want them asking questions. But my point is being humble enough to accept what we're trying to convey in the training, even if, there's 100 ways to skin a cat, and we say in tactics, it's a 70% solution at best. So it's just a way typically that we're trying to put out in training. So when we get somebody in training, we want them to be humble, be a sponge. Obviously, we want them to have some leadership skills so that they kind of a take charge type of attitude, because, we need decision makers in this job. I like to see folks come to training physically fit, because we want them to set the example right?
Glad you said that.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, appearance is a big part of this game. So
Yeah.
if you look fit, generally you're going to convey confidence and fitness, wellness, self-control, those types of things.
Capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Can you actually physically do the job?
Right.
So yeah, those are pretty much, kind of standard across the board. Probably what most folks look for training, but I really want that individual that's a sponge. They're, really looking to find some other ways of doing things, even if they come with, a fair amount of experience. Every week, I learn something every day.
Yeah.
I guarantee I'm going to pick something up from just this conversation with you, and hopefully you'll do the same with me, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a mentality, I think that's like, we're like kind of hungry learners. And if you have that humility, it just keeps you open to be able to soak up the lessons that I think life and the good Lord puts in front of us, to be honest. So thinkers and people who are humble enough to learn are some of the attributes that we're looking for. And physical fitness, it's huge. The way you do one thing is the way you might do many things, Yeah. So, impulse control. I always tell guys, when I look at you, I see your standards. I see your physical fitness standards. I see your attention to detail, just based on the way you put this outfit together, your discretion,
Yeah. No, that's true. And, you only get one shot at a first impression. So a lot of times that's going to be a lasting impression, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I'll take character over a tactical, I can teach it. We can teach anyone tactics, but character.
Yeah.
That's
which actually brings up a good point. You probably if you haven't seen it or read it, I would recommend The Talent War. We pretty much kind of push that with some of our folks in training. It's a great book. Written by a former Force Recon / Navy SEAL guy. He went over to the SEAL program from the Marines, and now he heads up a group for high net worth type recruiting. And the book's called The Talent War, but it speaks to that exact point you just made, which is hire for character, train for skill. That's pretty much the mantra of the book. And it's a great read.
Nice. We'll definitely have to check that out. That's the second time that someone suggested that book to me. So it's got to be a good one. Advice to someone moving from being an agent into like a middle management position in our industry. Well, I mean, you kind of touched on leadership a bit, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I wrote down a couple notes here. I just want to make sure I'm answering the question the way I had hoped to answer it. So I'm just going to reflect to this here for just a second.
Yeah, I jump around a little. I'm jumping around a little bit. But this isn't live, so we can edit. We'll make it all smooth and everything.
Oh, good. So I guess I've already somewhat made this point, but I guess from an agent moving to middle management, maybe the first thing to talk about is, again, what are you doing to make that client or that principal's life easier? If you think about a billionaire or some of these folks in the tech industry or just any ultra high net worth individual, their time is valuable, thousands and thousands of dollars per second. So if we can streamline their schedule, if we can make their time more valuable to them, if we can make their life easy, I think from a middle management perspective, that's going to be huge, is just looking at that big picture from that, point of view. Secondly, you're now probably you are going to have folks subordinate to you, right? Your team and so forth. Just to kind of backstep a little bit, with our organization, our embedded accounts, we have a program manager that sits above, on paper, maybe that's a bad term, but sits above the detail. In other words, they're not part of the actual close protection detail. The program manager manages all the accounts and so forth and interfaces with the client and that type of thing. And they also obviously take care of the needs of the detail, whereas the detail leader is out there obviously on the ground floor, running close protection. So from a middle management perspective, when you've got subordinates, right, that you're responsible for, it goes to that old Marine Corps stuff, right?
Yeah.
Mission first, humans always. Take care of the troops. Make sure you're addressing the mission, but at the same time, you got to take care of those human beings that you're responsible for. And that means everything, pay on time, making sure they're trained properly, making sure they're doing things that keep them grounded and, stay focused on what they're supposed to be doing with the mission and their own, personal wellness, all those things that evolve around leadership.
Yeah.
And just, again, empathy, put yourself in those people's shoes that you're surrounded by.
Yeah. The empathy thing too is another one of those underrated qualities. Like if you want to have influence or lead, or empathy is so stinking powerful. It's like where everything begins. Like you even want to just get to someone in a conversation, like being able to understand where they're coming from, making sure they know that you understand where they are coming from before you try to implement this stuff is like, it is like a superpower, it's really gratifying. It fortifies and strengthens relationships in such a positive way. It's like,
I agree. Stuff. And it's a learned skill. It's not something you're really born with. You have to work at it. And, trying to, especially, you look at today's polarized, not to get all political, but you look at the state of our country today, it's very polarized, right?
Yeah.
So, we've gotten to a point where if I don't agree with you, you hate me just because I have a different opinion, right? That's crazy, right? So why can't we have a conversation and me try to understand your view, even if it's a little bit different, and get back to the old way of doing things that our grandfathers and our grandmothers were used to.
Yep.
Have a conversation, and if you disagree, hey, try to work it out. But this polarization is just crazy. But putting that into EP terms, it's again empathy.
100%.
Yep.
It's so good. No, I love it. That's powerful stuff. I hope everyone listening really takes that to heart. So then switching back kind of into, the Allied Universal world and the training and stuff like that, what would you say people need to know about, Allied Universal right now as a company and the direction they're going and different things like that? Yeah,
great. I'm glad you asked that. So let me backstep a little bit. And, people probably know we started out as AS Solution, right?
Right.
Former management, the actual founder of the company. I won't mention his name only not because I don't want to mention it, but I haven't cleared it with him. So I'm just going to leave him out of the conversation. But I think everybody knows AS Solutions was a very, very well-established company. Right now, currently, we've rebranded when Allied Universal purchased us. And I think it's important to note that we are a separate company under the umbrella of Allied Universal. So, if you wanted to kind of get official, our official name is Allied Universal Executive Protection and Intelligence Services, Inc. We are a separate company under that. We have our own CEO, right? And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we have embedded accounts that, we're responsible for. Even our current situation, even though we've recently rebranded a couple of years ago, we have, this is going to sound like I'm bragging a little bit, but it's true. We actually have more Fortune 500 clients than any other company in the world. We currently do about 190 training days per year, or 190 courses per year, and about 300 plus training days per year. And that includes on-demand training, right? So we're pretty busy. I look at my schedule right now for 2022, and already for what we have on the books right now, I'm going to be traveling close to 6 months of the year right now, and we've still got things going on the books. So
it's just the beginning. This that's going to compound, might double.
Yeah. So to answer your question a little bit more in detail, so our ops and our training, as I mentioned, we're tied at the hip, and the reason again is to support the embedded accounts. But all of our programs we offer, unless it's a custom for a client, are all open enrollment. So if you were to go to our website today and look at our Executive Protection Training Academy, you'll see the courses that are currently on the books. But we run what we call our core courses, our core competency courses for our agents. That's a series of 5 courses. So we do a driver course, which is DRV 201. That's an 8-hour driving course, which is security and defensive driving. Essentially, it's a vehicle dynamics type course where the students are going to get 8 hours of stick time on a racetrack doing vehicle dynamics.
Nice.
Do a TECC/LEO course. So we also do an 8-hour medical course. We have an 18 Delta. Our lead instructor comes in. He's a former Special Forces medic. He's a current paramedic.
Nice.
And what he does is he runs the guys through an 8-hour block of basically the TECC course that the National Association of EMT puts out, right? And that leads to an actual, when the students graduate at the end of the day, they get a certificate certifying them as tactical emergency casualty care / law enforcement officer certified. So they get that certification. That's the 8-hour course.
Wow.
Then we do
law enforcement officer certification is something I haven't heard before. That's new.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? It's the TC3 course, which is normally a 16-hour course. And to be honest with you, it's scaled down to an 8-hour course. So it's the TC3, tactical combat casualty care course. It's the 8-hour version of that, but it's more centric to first responders outside of the military, right?
Okay. Yeah, more centric to our mission here.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Outstanding.
Yeah. And then our, being an 18 Delta, he'll throw in quite a lot of his own kind of flavor of things as well.
Nice.
So it's a pretty thorough medical block. So I've covered driver and that TECC course. Then we do what we call it defensive tactics and physical response course, which is 2 days of mat room centric type attacks on principle.
Nice.
Tactics, physical response, all that stuff that is tied into that, right?
Yeah.
And then we do a 1-day firearm course, which we call executive protection handgun. That's an 8-hour course on the range, shooting on the move, principle drills, all those types of things. Heavy emphasis on both strong hand, support hand, two-handed shooting.
Okay.
You know the drill. I know you're a shooter.
All the stuff, man. All the good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So those 4 courses, and then we do a 5-day, what we call our executive protection training program. And that's the EP centric. A lot of it's the soft skill type stuff. I mean, there's some hard skill stuff in there, but it's, walking the principle,
right.
Coverage, protective intelligence, advances, all the EP centric type stuff that goes into that.
Right.
So I don't want to confuse you, but when those courses are all together, we run that as what we call it, the Executive Protection Academy. So that's a 10-day academy. Currently, we run it about four times a year in Vegas. That's where we currently do it. Those courses can be delivered as standalones or together. In other words, let's say in theory, you wanted to take our driver course. You could do that as a standalone, or you can do it when we're running the full 10-day academy and, take some other courses in conjunction, right?
Wow. Nice. So you can pick your parts, or you can get the full meal deal depending on what you can do with your time and everything else. That's nice.
Yeah. And then we run some, what I call one-offs. They're not really considered our core courses, which are required of all our embedded agents. But we also run a new course we actually established this past year called our Waterborne Security Operations course. That's a 3-day water program where students will actually get certified through the Red Cross as lifeguards, so they can get on boats and provide protection to the principal on a waterborne environment. They'll also get refreshed in CPR, AED for both adult and pediatric. And then we spend an 8-hour day. That first 2 days is the ARC lifeguard certification.
Okay.
The final day of that 3-day course is all EP centric waterborne stuff. So we'll stress them out a little bit in the pool, give them some stress inoculation, some waterborne stuff.
You guys got a recon talking about stressing out in the pool. I don't know if you guys know it.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I guarantee you it's good training. I guarantee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Outstanding. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. And then currently we just developed a active threat response course for EP as well. So this is it's an active threat model, but it's EP centric. So in other words, most of the time, let's put ourselves in an active threat environment where we got an active shooter, something kicks off in the vicinity of our principal. we're not going to go to a traditional active threat response like law enforcement would, right? We're not going to go out direct to the threat and try to take out the threat. In most cases, we need to hard point our principal, either shelter him or her in place, or evacuate, or if for some reason something kicks off and we're separated from our principal, now we need to go clear the spaces to get to our principal so we can, effect a rescue. So that active threat course is based on that model. It's more EP centric.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're doing some pretty good things.
Yeah, you're doing some awesome things. That's exciting, man. And getting me in the mood to train. That's and this is all. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I'd love to. And this is all. This is in Vegas, and this is all open enrollment. So these assets are available to everyone.
They are.
Unless you're doing a specific thing for a detail, basically.
They are. And just to make sure I didn't misspoke, currently the EP Academy and those EP-centric courses are in Vegas, but we take them on the road for clients. We just did I just went across the pond a few months back for a client over in Ireland, and we did some training there. So we also, we can do mobile training groups as necessary, depending on the the scope of what we're trying to do.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. That's exciting. What would you say in terms of training, what are some of the more important components of approaching executive protection training? Things that you're looking for to know that it's good training, the ways that people are retaining it, different things like that.
Yeah. Really good question.
This is your realm. You're the guy. I gotta ask you all that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I think honestly, this is where some folks miss the mark. I think to me, and I've learned some of this the hard way going up through my career as well. I've been doing training for 30 plus years, so my 40-year career now. So what I've learned, maybe 30 years ago, I might have just pulled out something off the top of my head because I know it, right? I know how to do CQB, so I might just go into a shoot house and start showing somebody how to do something, right?
Start moving around, yeah.
Right? But 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said, here, these are your measurable training objectives. These are your metrics, your key performance indicators. So what I'm getting at now is this is where I think some folks miss the mark, and I think honestly we do this quite well for where we are currently. Is everything we do in training has what we call a terminal performance objective, and then enabling performance objectives that lead up to that terminal performance objective. So an example is when you go through our EP course, there's a terminal objective that we want you to be able to accomplish at the end of that 5-day training. We want you to go out to the field and be able to do this. It's not a training objective, it's an actual operational objective, right? So we don't focus our training on just getting that certificate. We want the training to translate to the field so that when you get out to the field, you have these skills, hit the ground running, and you go with it. Doesn't mean they can't be developed, but you already have the tools when you get out there. Point being is everything has a measurable standard. So when you go to our training programs, when you go through a practical lab, there's a performance a measurable metric that you have to meet. If you don't meet it, we'll remediate you. You get a second chance. If you don't meet it the second time around, you get a certificate of attendance, but not a certificate of completion. So my point being is...
What, no participation trophies?
Oh, no.
We don't get participation trophies.
No.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that. So happy to hear that. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think... it's not to take anything away. If someone, if it's an open enrollment, they're paying hard-earned money, but we tell them on day one, this is the standard. You have to meet it. And if you don't, we're gonna do everything in our power to set you up for success. And when I say we'll give you an opportunity to remediate, let's say you fail a written test, you need an 80 and you get a 79. We'll work with you, give you an opportunity to retest before we graduate the class. Right. And if you hit the mark, good to go. You'll get the minimum passing score, right? So you'll get you could score the second time around, get 100, but you're going to get an 80 for your grade since you missed the first one, right?
Righteous.
Now you get a 79 the second time around, you get a certificate of attendance for sitting through the course, but you don't graduate.
Yeah.
And I'll just make a point. Our last academy, we had one student that did not meet the performance objectives. The practical part, he missed the mark. He wasn't quite getting everything we were trying to lead him to.
Right.
So, we patted him on the back, shook his hand, said, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
There's a certificate of attendance. Please come back. We'd love to get you back, and, let's work on this. These are some things you need to work on, and we'll get you back there and hopefully get you that graduation certificate next time around.
Yep. I respect the heck out of it. I think this is exactly how it should be, because we're just protecting people's lives here. There's no, there have to be standards, man. And it's love. Like, I have nothing but respect for someone who spends their hard-earned time and money to come out there and try and earn that certificate of graduation, and even if they don't I have respect for them for being there and going and doing it. But who would we be if we let just anyone through, with our badge of approval? It's as agents and as leaders and as, the people that we're supposed to be, it's just unacceptable. I think.
I agree.
I'm glad to hear you guys are doing that. My dogs are going crazy.
That's right.
Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, awesome. And then as we start to get into the closing questions, is there anything else you want to say about Allied Universal?
We're constantly recruiting. As I've replied in some of the social media posts, and folks always ask about work, especially new folks trying to break into the field, right? As you've seen hundreds of them yourself. I know you have. Much I would tell anybody is you kind of have to be willing to go to where the work is, right? If you asked about Allied, we have accounts all over the world, but within stateside, we're very heavy on the West Coast right now. We have some semblance of accounts on the East Coast right now, as we've just acquired a few new accounts on the East Coast and the New England area. So there's opportunities there, and we're always about recruiting, and obviously we want, we like to think we have high marks for recruiting. We have high standards. We recruit heavily for veterans, but we recruit from all walks of life as well.
Right.
So I would just say, advice I give to anybody, and I know I'm almost guessing you would probably offer the same type of advice, is if you haven't been to an executive protection formal training program, get to one, do your research. I'd love to see you come to ours, but there's also some other great ones out there, and do some research, find out what type of culture you're looking for, right? Look at the company culture. Companies vary quite a bit. When you look at Gavin Newbecker, who I actually have a lot of respect for them, they have quite a bit of different culture than we do, right? We're more of a tech type of culture and culture within our company. It's vastly different than Gavin Newbecker, but to me, they're both very reputable. So again, if I'm talking to a potential recruit candidate that wants to come to us, I would say make sure that you research the company that's a good fit for the culture.
Right.
Get some good training. Come in, with that humility, right? Open mind. Be willing to learn, and be professional. And a few other things I would say, just good advice for any EP practitioner, is be very sensitive to the client's privacy, the principal's privacy, and their
Basin.
Private life, right? Those types of things are really critical. So although, I would love to say, I've protected Lady Gaga, which I haven't. So yeah, for everybody out there, I have not. Right. But if I was, I'm not going to be taking pictures with her and, taking pictures on her corporate jet and that type of thing. It's just, it's not professional. Yeah. So, be respectful of who you're dealing with, and sensitivity is huge in privacy in this business. So yes, we need to be sensitive to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And with just discretion with those things, Yeah. And in this age of social media, it's easy to make mistakes really quickly. So don't be ashamed to send it. If you're listening to this and there's a few of those pictures on your, go take them down, Yeah. But really, that I find a lot of, I think it's helped at least my career a lot protecting the client's privacy. And that's like obviously done digitally, but then even in the environments I find myself in, you know, if a husband and wife start a conversation that I shouldn't really be listening to, or I make it obvious that I'm not listening, you know, this kind of discretion of protecting their privacy is something we've got to do in Indeed and everything as well all the time. Yeah. Good stuff there. You dropped a lot of good stuff. Come out, train, you know, the training gives people a glimpse at you, and it gives you guys the ability to forge relationships in the industry. This is like ultra valuable stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, corporate cultures, you know, understanding the company that you're looking at, that stuff, that can be a real big friction point, or you can really be like, man, I found my home.
Yeah.
You know, I feel good here. You know, these
absolutely.
You know, those are the differences. Longevity. Yeah. It'll impact your longevity.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, final point, if I may, on just some advice is, you know, my background in EP, and we really didn't even get into this, but when I left the Marine Corps, you know, my real first taste of EP was I went over to the State Department on a, you know, the world at the time, now that's WPS, as you know, World Protective Services. Back then it was called Worldwide Protective Services, Worldwide Personal Protective Services, WPS. Okay. Right, same contract, but just had a different name back then. So anyway, 2004 is when I went to State Department. So my point I'm making is most of my background in EP, and then I went to FLETC for 5 years. It's all kind of government heavy, government centric perspective, right?
Yeah.
So I had to really learn kind of the corporate side. You know, I had to transition, and it's a lot different. So this is where I was talking about earlier when we started, where I was probably a little bit on the arrogant side coming from the State Department contract, thinking this is the only way to do things. And, you know, I'll tell you right now, that was a big, foolish, prideful attitude to have, because I got humbled really quickly from some really reputable guys that were a lot younger than me and had a lot more experience. You know, the old carrying the bags thing, right? We all hear.
Oh, yeah. I used to, in the private side, it's a whole different ballgame.
I'll be honest. I'm ashamed to say, but I was one of those guys that said, "Oh, we don't carry bags." And,
die hard, no bag carrying.
And I learned quickly. Yeah. I learned very quickly. That was a very foolish, arrogant perspective. Because that's not corporate EP. Again, It goes, you know, safe, happy, productive, keeping that client happy. If we need to carry his wife's bags or her husband's bags, it doesn't matter. We're doing it, right?
Yep. Put the car seat in. We're doing things.
Doing things that we may not have done on the government side, but just point being is you have to be able to transition to the environment that you're working with. And part of that, again, is being humble. Just do whatever it takes. Mission first, humans always.
I love that. That's such good stuff. And then favorite quote or mantra that you like that's held you down over the years?
Probably my favorite quote or mantra is be firm, be fair, be consistent, be yourself.
Wow.
Right? And you know, I'd love to say I made that up. I did. One of my colonels in the Marine Corps taught me that early on in my career. And to me, it's great advice. And in fact, I'll name drop the guy. He's a lieutenant general in the Marine Corps today, Lieutenant General Smith, George Smith. Wow. He's a big force recon guy. He was my CO with 4th Force. Actually, he was my INI, my inspector instructor, officer in charge as a major. Now he's a lieutenant general, but he used that all the time. And he was a great example. And I mentioned him because he's actually a guy I try to be like in many ways. I've never been one, and even in the Marines, you've seen the drill instructor types that scream and yell. That's never been my leadership style.
Same.
I'm more of a mentor coach, right? I'd rather take the guy aside, put my arm around him, and say, "Look, dude, this is how you're doing it. This is where you're screwing up."
Yep.
That's really how Lieutenant General Smith is, and that's really looked up to him all these years, and still to this day, he's kind of my role model. I try to do things the same way. Again, do I fall on my sword occasionally? Yeah, I do. I wish I could say I hit it 100% of the time, but I don't. but I try, right? But that, to me, that's pretty good advice. Just be firm, be fair, be consistent, and be yourself. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. Just make it fit your personality.
Yeah, there's so much power in that, man.
Yeah,
that's when people really find their voice and find their power, when they can really be themselves and work on being a self that you're proud of enough to be yourself.
Exactly.
Like,
that's good advice right there.
There's something to that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good stuff. I love that quote. I might make that the tagline for this episode. A habit that you think agents and people should look at that helps them become a better person or a better protector.
It's a good one. I know I keep sounding like a broken record, but I would say humility.
Yeah.
Just be humble. And that goes all the way around. It's easy to say be humble. I don't mean just treat people with respect.
Right.
You're dealing with a principal who wants respect. You're dealing with those family members. You're dealing with fellow agents.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the executive assistant or the personal assistant of the principal, right? They're oftentimes very demanding. In fact, they always are demanding. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a relationship you got to work at.
Yeah. So it's all about relationship building. Try to build bridges and try to be that guy that's always trying to find a solution and not just be one that blames. Blaming is really, to me, not very good leadership. It's easy to point a finger and say, screwed up. To that point, also, if you make a mistake, own it. Yeah, man, that was on me. I screwed that up badly.
Yes.
I screwed up in advance one time in Iraq so badly that we got our principal to the venue almost 2 hours late. Luckily, and this is a senior executive service level State Department diplomat. Luckily, he was a great guy. He was fine.
He wasn't out for blood, but somebody was. My
AIC was out for blood.
Jeez, man. There's always one. Burn him at the stakes, and you're like, come on.
Yeah.
And how'd you deal with it?
Fortunately, he was a good guy as well. My AIC was a former Delta 4 Sergeant Major. Very, very squared away guy. Same thing. Low key, didn't get excited. He basically said, you screwed up, dude. Let's fix it. You know what you did wrong. And that was the end of it, but that was one of those life lessons, those mistakes that you really don't repeat again.
You're never going to make exactly.
And I didn't. Yeah.
That says so much about cause I find myself even with my teams, like when my guys make mistakes, it's like, I know they're good guys and I know they're kicking themselves. And I don't have to, go into all these other disciplinary kind of things I've seen done because I'm like, hey, and they're like, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. And I just don't feel the need to do that because they're not going to do that again. It's just the human factor. And now we're better now because of it.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about a lot of things, I think.
Yeah. Going back to my mentor, Lieutenant General Smith.
Yeah.
And he was a major when this happened, but I goofed something up one time. I won't get into the weeds. It's not important what it was, but I was feeling bad and just beating myself up. And I'm expecting a butt chewing at the end of the day when we get through this event we were dealing with. And I've been anticipating, almost like when you're a little kid waiting for your dad to come home.
To get home. Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of one of those situations. And I'm the first sergeant of the unit at this point. I'm the senior enlisted. And I, so he's my guy. I'm his direct guy. Right? So at the end of the day, he's coming up to me and I'm just dreading it. Oh, here we go. I'm thinking I might even get fired over this. And he's like, First Sergeant, nobody's going to beat you up more than yourself. So let's just make sure this never happens again. I'm like, Roger that, sir. And that was it. That's the kind of leader he was.
Wow.
And, rather than just tearing me to shreds, he knew I goofed up and he knew I knew that I had goofed up. So, again, it was one of those things that didn't get repeated. I learned from it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Knowing you had good character and internal accountability, just that does the heavy lifting, I think.
Exactly.
And then the final question, what's it all for? How would you like to be remembered, at the end of the day?
Again, pretty simple. I'd like to be just a normal guy. I'm not any any legend or anything like that in the Marine Corps. I'm not a recon guy. I'm just a guy that is trying to do a good job. In my current role, I try to be a good family man. I'd like to think I've got my priorities in order in terms of my human responsibilities, if you will, right? I'm trying to be a good guy and influence people in a positive way, whoever I deal with, whether it's training, family, relationships, whatever. Just, each day try to get a little bit better. And that's how I hope to be remembered anyway.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love the humility. You guys all see that wall behind him who watch on YouTube? That's what you can do if you try to get a little bit better, That's a legendary wall right there. I love everything. It's an honor. It's been an honor.
Likewise.
I learned so much from you here today in this brief conversation. I know that this has tremendous value. I really hope everyone takes these lessons to heart. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I think, Leonardo da Vinci said that. And we, a lot of the stuff that you gave during this conversation are simple things that I think really can help the listener tremendously. So thanks so much for your time and attention today, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Byron. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
And I'm so excited for what you guys are doing at Allied, and to hear that that's all open enrollment, and that you guys are offering those levels of training. And with you at the helm, man, I know it's going to be solid stuff. So that's awesome too.
I appreciate that.
Outstanding. And then where can people find you?
So I'm on social media, so pretty much LinkedIn. Duke Speed is LinkedIn is my handle there. I'm on Instagram as well, Duke Speed. Facebook, I'm in Joe LaSource's Protector Services group, which I'm a big fan of. I think that's a good, solid group there. And then, of course, email. If you want to email me, it's actually my given name, richard.speed@aus.com. Feel free to plug me on the email. And then our website itself is aus.com. Now that the website, I'm just gonna, not to get too in the weeds here, it's a little tricky to find the EP part of big AUS.
They got you tucked in the corner.
Yeah,
somewhere.
they got us tucked in. So under professional services, you'll see a link for professional services. Just look for the Executive Protection Intelligence Services link, and that will get us to our all the links for our company, including training.
Awesome. Outstanding. Yep. And then if you can just send me those links after this, I'll put the show notes. Too easy.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, thank you so much, sir. Much appreciated. God bless Semper Fi.
Thank you, Brian. Semper Fi. Take care.
Awesome. Out.
Yo, if you're a private security professional wanting to take your game to the next level, go to executiveprotectiontrainingday.com to check out my personal success package for private security professionals. Check it out. executiveprotectiontrainingday.com. And remember, y'all, hard skills do save lives, but soft skills get you paid. Boom. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can, because it makes all of these things possible. Thanks for those contributions. Yo, and before we go, I got to shout out to the sponsors, starting out with Primary Weapon Systems, PWS. They truly are the evolution of the rifle. Use Byron for 10% off. Grayman and Company, the most comfortable tactical suits in the game. Use Byron for 10% off with them. Until the next podcast, this is Byron Rodgers, protector by nature and by trade. Out.